So I'm finally kind of getting back into the shop organization project thingy that I started like, I don't know, like 8 months ago. Haven't really done a whole lot in the shop for organization or anything since then. I have been working on the highboy for like the last 7 months, so that's been kind of consuming things. And it seems like whenever I get into a project, it's like the project turns the shop to crap. And there's just like stuff everywhere. And after every big project like that, there needs to be a time to kind of reset things. So the next project I'll be working on in the shop is going to be the outfeed table. I'm planning to build something very similar to the old one that I had with the drawers and the open area. So one of the things I want to get done today is to kind of clean up this area back here behind the table saw and get this back wall a little bit more organized, since it's kind of wasted space right now, or underutilized space is probably the better way to put it. And kind of figure out what things I'll be able to put into the outfeed table, and then again kind of look at things and see if anything needs to be on its way out of here. So to kind of gain a little bit of perspective on where this all is in the shop, I'm just going to pan you around here so you can see the rest of it. And that's like the workbench area and the lathe and stuff. So that's like where I stand for the shop update, and then come back around to here. So I know a lot of people ask me like what size the shop is. This is a 2-car garage. It's a small 2-car, so it's about 20 by 20. So if you were actually park 2 cars in here, you wouldn't have a whole lot of room for anything else really. So one of the things I want to do with this back wall is to create a little bit of a parking lot kind of thing, so I could have some of these stationary tools, or like the mobile stationary tools, be able to be wheeled back against the back wall here, kind of out of the way, so that when I do need them, I can just wheel them out and use them. That'll give me a little more floor space. And I'm especially thinking about that for the drum sander, because as you can see, it doesn't get used all that often, and really it's on wheels. I can wheel it out when I need to use it, and not having it here would give me a little more room beside the table saw to move around or set up a camera. Or I could also move the bandsaw and my sander over a little bit, so I have a little more space around the assembly table. So I'll start working kind of around here, getting things tidied up and put away. This is going to be a little more on the informal side. I have the heater running. I'm not going to turn it off. Normally I turn it off for doing videos so there's no noise in the background, but I don't feel like freezing today. So if you hear a little bit of humming, which is what you hear right now, that's the heater kicking on. So the first thing on my list is the scrap bin. It is like really overflowing right now, because I haven't emptied it since I started the highboy. When I do a project, I like to keep all of the offcuts and scraps in case I need to have a piece that, you know, has the same colors, from the same board, or whatever. It's just nice to have all of the offcuts still, so I can utilize as much of the stock as possible, and so I have options to fix problems or whatever I might need a small piece of that wood for. So I'm not necessarily going to totally empty this right now, but it is overflowing. I want to get it back to being contained within the size of the drum. So I'm going to pull out anything that is clearly going to be firewood, and there are some larger offcuts that I'll set aside that I'll give away for someone else to use. So one thing I have a lot of are these spalted birch offcuts. These are some offcuts from the drawer bottoms and the backboards from the highboy. And what I want to do with these is actually make these into pen blanks. I know a few people have seen the stabilizing resin that I have over by the lathe, and I also got that vacuum chamber last fall. So what I'll do with these is cut them into pen blanks and then impregnate them with resin to stabilize them. That's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and since I have all of this stock, which would make just absolutely gorgeous pens, that's what I'm going to do with it. So I just set these spalted birch things over by, the lathe and the vacuum chamber stuff. Get them somewhat out of the way. So that's a bit better. At least now it's not overflowing. It's a little more contained. So the lumber rack. Back when I did my last organization video, I had kind of this idea that the lumber rack would become something that just contains materials for the project that I'm working on and any upcoming projects. And for the most part, I've kind of kept that fairly true, although I had a very loose definition of upcoming project. A lot of stuff on the top shelf was for upcoming projects, but it's more like projects that someday maybe I'll do. So I think a lot of stuff up there will probably come down. I'll find somewhere else for them to go, like in the shed or something, and then just have the one layer, or the one top shelf for the lumber rack, and probably remove the lower brackets. I think today I might just take off half the brackets and use this shelf over here for other stuff, because I do have some things over here that I want to get kind of up and out of the way, and up here in the lumber rack would be kind of a good spot for that. So the boards over here, these can come down. I'm going to use these this week. These are the drawer bottoms for the highboy, so I can set these aside because I'll be using those pretty soon. So back in the corner, I have a lot of stuff that I can really get out of here and get rid of, or maybe even put into the outfeed table whenever I build that. I have these bracket feet. These are like the first ones I ever did. I did like half the case, and I don't remember what happened, if I changed my mind on the style or something, but I've had these sitting around in case I wanted to use them for some other piece of furniture. Never used them. Clearly I never will. These are the veneer samples I made when I did the secretary desk. This is contact cement. This is delaminating quite a bit. So, I don't know. Contact cement, probably not the best thing to use on veneer, because it is like, this was really nice the day I did it, and it's just been sitting out here. Nothing's been wearing on it. It's been sitting there, just delaminating. There's a template for those bracket feet. Garbage. All right, cutting boards. Things I never finished. I think I might put these up on the rack if they fit. Nope, I have to put something underneath them. Larger offcuts from the highboy. These I will give away. So I have some of these thinner sheet goods, like this auxiliary fence. I think I'll store this stuff up here. It's probably a better spot for it anyway. Pull it. So up here on the rack and on top of the apple press, and then down here as well, are strips of wood. These are all offcuts from the highboy, I guess. And this is the kind of stuff I used to keep to make cutting boards with. But nowadays, I just turn all of these into stickers, because you can never have enough stickers. I always seem to run out of them as I'm stacking lumber. Oh boy. So to get these things out of the way, I'm going to get them all down to final thickness so that they're ready to go for stacking wood. So I have two thicknesses of stickers that I commonly use, 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch, just depending on how much negative space I want to have in the stack. So I'll go through the pile here and plane down anything that'll get to 3/4 of an inch. Anything less than that, I'll get to 1/2 inch. So I think what I'm going to do is take this apple press apart and put it up on the lumber rack until I'm ready to finish it. I haven't gotten around to that yet, and it's the middle of winter now. This is not going to get used again until next fall, so probably not going to have any need to finish it anytime soon. So last year I did sell my router table I had made a few years ago, because I do have the Trident Work Center and I don't need 2 router tables. But the downside to getting rid of the old one was that it had the storage cabinet underneath it. So when I sold that, I lost a lot of storage, and most of the stuff down here right now and what's on top of the router table right now was all in that cabinet. So especially I don't have any spots for router bits except for a small shelf on the wall. So I think the best solution for the bits and a lot of the router stuff is to make a nice little wall cabinet for that stuff. I think that'll both look nice and be a lot more organized than having stuff, you know, in drawers in a cabinet. Now some of these larger tools like these ones down here, I think a lot of this stuff can end up going into the storage in the outfeed table. I think that's going to work out pretty well for that. So for a lot of stuff, I'm just going to set it aside for now. And then when the outfeed table gets built, I can put all this stuff into the drawers in that thing. Now because I don't have anywhere for the router bits and the accessories to go, I'm just going to stick it all into the box here, so at least I have it all contained in one space, and I can just kind of move it around all at once. Like right now, if I want to use the router table, I got to take all the stuff off of it. Usually I throw it onto the table saw, and then I need to use the table saw, and then I move all the stuff back on here again. And it's just this back and forth thing. It's really nice not having those brackets there. It feels a lot more roomy. It's kind of nice. So over here, I want to get rid of some of this stuff, or at least get it more organized. I still haven't taken apart my chainsaw yet, and I will probably do that today. I was going to put that out in the shed. I think I'll probably take apart the frame for the mill and put that in the shed. But I think what I want to do is actually make a chainsaw like hanger bracket thing, or wall mount kind of thing. I think that'd be kind of cool. So something I could put right up here, I could put my chainsaws just hanging, so I'd have the bars pointing down to the floor and the power heads would be, you know, up here. I think that would look pretty nice, and they'd be out of the way, because right now they don't really have a good place to go, and they're just kind of on the floor wherever they fit. So I think that would be a nice little project for this year as well. And I'm just going to put this other apple press stuff up here so it's out of the way and all together. Ugh. So over here on this back wall, I used to have a bench, or like a table thing, and I had the miter saw and like my drill press and the mortiser, and then next to it I had a little cart with the spindle sander on it. And that's what this guy went to, and that was years ago. And I'm just gonna remove this dust collection pipe here. It'll just clean up the space a little bit and make it look a little less cluttered. Now on top of the pipe, I have a lot of little strips of wood. I have some thin strips in case I want to use something, or I need some like shim stock for something. I also have some little offcut pieces that I use for like stir sticks, or for like mixing epoxy. So stuff up here I do actually use or want, so I'm going to find a better place for all these little pieces of wood, and then get rid of this pipe, so this whole area becomes a lot more neat and tidy looking. And I can just cap this thing off in case I ever need it again. Look at this. Look at all the room. That's kind of crazy. There's so much room back here now. Wow. What a difference. This is a lot of space. I think next I'm going to just go ahead and take the chainsaw mill apart while I have the room to do it, because I need like at least 10 feet of clearance. So I'll pull the chainsaw out of the mill. I'll take the mill apart and set that aside, and at least this will take up less space for now. And then when I build that sweet chainsaw rack, I can hang it up and it can be on display as well as functionally out of the way. So now I think I can start bringing some of the stuff into the space, kind of getting things situated here. Something like that. Get trapped in here. So one nice thing about having this open space under the work center is it gives me space for my shop vac and the air compressor. Nice. So I think I am going to shift the bandsaw this way a little bit, probably only 6 inches, but it'll give me a little more space over here around the assembly table, and I don't really need as much space to have created over here, so I'm just going to go something like that. So I mean, it's only like a few inches, but this is so much more space to walk through here. So I'm pretty happy about that. So as I was cleaning, I found a few templates, and I stick those up here. This is my little template storage area. So I have all the templates I made for the highboy. Those are up here now. Here is the scroll board for that. There we go. And here's a curved template from when I made the sofa table. So this is really great. It's amazing what just a small change can really do to the whole workspace, because really the biggest thing I did was just move this tool back here from right over here, and there's just so much more room here and so much more space. And even now that I moved the bandsaw over only like 6 inches, there's so much room around the assembly table now, and I could actually shift the assembly table over like 3 inches to split the difference and have a little more space on the other side as well. That's something I might do in the future, but that thing is not exactly the easiest thing to move. So overall, really happy with this. And what I like about this whole process is, especially if you apply it back to 5S, which we talked about in the first shop organization video, it's kind of fun to be this far into it, because although I still am doing some sorting and some setting in order, there's also some of the 5th S, which is sort of reevaluating and auditing the process. And that's especially true with the whole lumber rack idea that I had originally. So I'd say that's probably like half effective, but I still need to work on that whole process myself. When I had the bottom layer on here, I used this exclusively for all the lumber for the highboy. And that process worked out really well because I had all the wood there, and as I used the wood for that project, it came off the shelf and it was out of the way, and the whole thing actually made sense. I only had wood in the shop that I actually needed for that project, which worked out really well, but obviously I have to do something with all the other stuff that's up here. It doesn't have to be in the shop. Probably gonna go out in the shed, but it's middle of winter. I don't feel like going out there right now. So another thing that I like about this whole process is that you can kind of evaluate and see the areas that you can improve on to find different like storage things you might want to build. So of course, still looking at doing the chainsaw thing, I kind of came up with that this time. Having a chainsaw rack would be really beneficial to storing those. And I'm also thinking that now, since these brackets are exposed on the sides, this is another opportunity where I could store things. So I'm kind of going back and forth between like tool storage, so I could hang like a router there or a circular saw or something like that, or I could put my chargers for the cordless tools on here and have them kind of up and out of the way, and then this space here isn't totally wasted. So it's kind of fun to just kind of think through things as you spend a few hours cleaning. There's not a whole lot of things to do besides just kind of think. And then of course some kind of router bit storage cabinet thing is definitely up on the list now, or it was on the list before, but it's especially apparent to me the necessity that it has now, because I've been just having all this stuff laying around, and it got really bad after I got the old router table out of here, so something has to be done about that as well. So it's a fun process to really kind of reevaluate everything and see where everything's at and all that good stuff. We're always trying to work towards that end goal of having a perfectly organized shop. It's just taken me many years to get there, and I've come quite a long way, thank you very much. So I think that's about it for this one. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on my shop or organization or whatever, please feel free to leave me a comment, as always I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.